Vanilla Coke wasn't just a soda, it was a revelation. A sugary slap to the taste buds that whispered, "Hey, what if your Coke was just a little fancier, a little creamier, a little more vanilla-y?" It tasted like someone poured a melted Coke float into a bottle and said, "You're welcome, America." And for a while it was available in every movie theater, vending machine, and corner store. Then, all of a sudden, it was gone. What happened? Where did it go? Is it ever coming back? Well, let's twist the bottle cap and pour one out as we discover whatever happened to Vanilla Coke. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. Then leave a comment and let us know what other soda fountain staples you would like to hear about next. Okay, show of hands, who here buried a case of Vanilla Coke during lockdown, just in case? The year was 2002. The world was just starting to recover from the Y2K hysteria. The first Spider-Man movie had everyone kissing upside down in the rain, and somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, a group of Coca-Cola executives stared at a can and asked, "What if we made this thing taste like a dessert?" The truth is, Vanilla Coke wasn't actually born in the early 2000s. Its roots go back decades earlier to a simpler time when soda fountains reigned supreme and flavored Coke was something your local soda jerk whipped up on the spot. In the 1950s and 60s, it was common for diners and lunch counters to offer custom mixed drinks. A splash of cherry syrup here, a pump of vanilla there. That floaty, creamy taste of vanilla Coca-Cola, well, that was the good stuff. The vanilla flavor was also an integral part of the original Coca-Cola recipe, but so was cocaine. We expect that may have been doing the heavy lifting in terms of repeat customers, so we'll just move on from the original recipe. Coke executives knew that customers loved the pump of vanilla added by their local soda jerk, but it took them until 1986 to test a bottled version of Vanilla Coke. Unfortunately, like new Coke, it just didn't stick. It was test marketed, then quietly shelved. Fast forward to May of 2002, the world had survived Y2K and we were all feeling a little adventurous. Coca-Cola had just watched the success of Pepsi Blue and Mountain Dew Code Red, which in executives' minds meant the world was finally ready for the official debut of Vanilla Coke. No more test runs. It was go time. Coca-Cola launched Vanilla Coke with a bang. Their marketing budget was a whopping $30 million, and they were going after nostalgic adults and curious teens. Hitting the heartstring of nostalgia was easy, but reaching the curious teens took some out-of-the-box thinking. Coca-Cola targeted young adults who were social and willing to try new things. The tagline, "Reward your curiosity," was used in humorous commercials that featured people being lured into odd situations by the promise of Vanilla Coke. It was a weird vibe. The launch campaign included everything from TV commercials to in-store promotions. Ads leaned heavily on retro, featuring old-school diners and soda fountains, while still tying it to modern pop culture. In one especially 2002 moment, Coca-Cola partnered with the film Austin Powers in Goldmember to brand Vanilla Coke as groovy, baby. It was the "my wife" of the early aughts. Sales were strong out of the gate. In its first year, Vanilla Coke captured a market share of 0.5%, which equates to millions of cans sold. More importantly, it helped reinvigorate Coca-Cola's image at a time when they were losing ground to Pepsi in the youth market. Within a year, Diet Vanilla Coke was added to shelves, letting Coke Float fans enjoy the sweet caffeinated treat without the added sugar. Coca-Cola wasn't just experimenting with flavor. They were also testing brand identity. Vanilla Coke, oddly enough, became kind of a personality trait. If you were drinking Vanilla Coke, you were someone who was courageous enough to try new things, but laid back enough not to care if people noticed. Like a hip old person, essentially. By 2003, Vanilla Coke had become one of the top 10 sodas in the US market, so that marketing budget was $30 million well spent. It wasn't overtaking the throne from the classic red can Coca-Cola, but it was holding its own against Cherry Coke and even giving Dr. Pepper a run for its money. And other soda companies were taking notice. In August of 2003, Pepsi Vanilla launched, followed quickly by Diet Pepsi Vanilla. Even RC tried a vanilla blend, but nobody remembered RC existed, so it didn't go over well. With the outbreak of vanilla fever, Coca-Cola decided to expand their lineup. They soon added Vanilla Coke Zero, Coke with vanilla and lime, whose life was brief, thankfully, and Vanilla Cherry Coke, which is pretty much just a can of Dr. Pepper. Meanwhile, the freestyle machines were quietly coming into the world. These touchscreen soda dispensers let you be your own soda jerk, adding splashes of vanilla, lime, cherry, orange, and more to your Coke. Vanilla Coke was among the most chosen mixes and often paired with Cherry Coke in a freestyle swirl of questionable wisdom. And then, something happened. Maybe the novelty wore off, or maybe people realized Vanilla Coke wasn't all that great. Whatever it was, sometime around the mid-2010s, Vanilla Coke began slipping from the shelves. Grocery stores stopped stocking it as reliably. It moved from the soda aisle to the, hey, maybe it's by the weird water section. So how did people respond? Well, this is America, baby. And Americans don't like to feel the things they love are in jeopardy. So fans started stockpiling it, of course. But why was it leaving the shelves anyway? Well, in part, it was the rise of health consciousness. Sales of full sugar sodas across the board were dropping. Diet and zero sugar options took center stage, and Coca-Cola had to make tough decisions on which flavors got prime distribution. It was very Sophie's choice. Then, guess who showed up to ruin the party as usual? COVID. In 2020, when the world shut down and everyone baked sourdough bread, made kombucha, and watched The Tiger King, Coca-Cola made a strategic decision to prioritize its top-selling products. That meant Classic Coke, Diet Coke, and Coke Zero. Vanilla Coke and other specialty flavors were quietly paused to streamline production. For a while, you couldn't find it anywhere, which meant those hoarders that stockpiled it before could proudly proclaim, "Who's laughing now?" Reddit threads lit up, Twitter raged, and people began wondering if they'd ever taste that soft vanilla fizz again. Plus, it didn't help that the vanilla flavor itself required different syrup ingredients and production lines. It was more expensive, more complicated, and in a world of lockdown and bottling delays, Vanilla Coke was just not essential.
This tiny room and the largeness of your curiosity is squishing me.
Vanilla Coke may be a little beaten down, but it never officially went away. In fact, in 2023, Coca-Cola reintroduced Vanilla Coke in select markets. You can still find it on Amazon, in some Walmarts, and scattered throughout the US, if you look hard enough. Of course, the freestyle machines kept the dream alive during the darkest times. Vanilla Coke is still one of the most frequently selected flavors in Coke's freestyle machines. Turns out, we still love Vanilla Coke. It's just that we love it on our own terms.
It's good.
Internationally, Vanilla Coke continues to thrive in countries like Australia, the UK, and Japan, where it never fully disappeared. In late 2023, Coca-Cola even started teasing new combinations. Coke plus vanilla plus raspberry, Vanilla Coke with Dream World flavor notes, whatever that means, and limited edition freestyle-only flavors, based on popular combinations taken from the machines. That's right, you may soon be able to get the legendary every flavor soda in a can. But a warning to all you sentimental soft drinkers out there. Don't get too attached to any new flavors, because Coca-Cola has a history of pulling the plug with little warning. Just ask Coca-Cola Coffee.
Word out, it's Cherry Coke, now more cherry taste in it.
Cherry Coke began with a whole lot of teenage flirting at the drugstore soda fountain, which might be one reason why the drink is so associated with young people. But Cherry Coke wasn't the first cherry cola at the dance. Heck, it wasn't even the second. So how did it become the #1 soda of summers at the drive-in and remain an enduring youthful favorite to this day? Well, today we're taking you through the sweet history of Cherry Coke. Okay, time to get sweet on an old favorite. The origins of Cherry Coke can be traced back to the late 1800s, when soda fountains in drugstores were common in American cities. These soda fountains served as social spaces, where soda jerks would mix popular sodas with flavored syrups.
What did you say?
And before you think I'm a jerk, let me clarify. A soda jerk was the swaggering showman/bartender of the soda fountain era, part mixologist, part entertainer. serving up fizzy concoctions and creamy treats with flair, charm, and a lingo all their own. Colas mixed with cherry syrup became a nostalgic staple of American culture, especially during the era of the Greatest Generation. These sweet, fizzy concoctions were more than just refreshments. They became a part of the social ritual, often associated with teen romance, trips to the local drugstore, and casual dates shared at the soda counter. Sharing a soda with 2 straws wasn't just cute, it was practically a rite of passage. The soda fountain became a stage for flirtation, banter, and bonding, with Cherry Coke serving as a particular favorite drink of young people. The rise of flavored sodas stemmed from the creativity and customer-first mentality of soda jerks, who would routinely tailor drinks by adding syrups like cherry, vanilla, or even chocolate to basic carbonated beverages. This do-it-yourself style approach to drink mixing made each order a little more personal and playful. One notable example is Cheerwine, created by L.D. Peeler during World War I. Faced with sugar rationing, Peeler used cherry flavoring to mask the reduced sweetness, inadvertently inventing a regional favorite that has endured for generations. Unlike the syrupy, frothy sodas common at the time, Cheerwine was crisp, sparkling, and bold. Locals said it had a cherry beginning and a rooty ending. This was not your soda jerk's fizzy flirtation. This was the real bottled deal. And North Carolinians took notice, as it quickly became a local favorite. Soon, Cheerwine wasn't just a drink, it was the drink, especially when served alongside pulled pork and tangy sauces that could peel paint off a Buick. Alan Richman, a restaurant critic with the palate of a poet, dubbed it the greatest accompaniment to barbecue ever produced. In the Carolinas, ordering Cheerwine with barbecue became known as the Southern Handshake, a gesture of regional pride and culinary good sense. Even as national soda brands stuck to the basics, Peeler's creation quietly built a legacy. The Carolina Beverage Corporation, which made Cheerwine and only Cheerwine, remained family-owned, passing down their fizzy dynasty through generations. But across America, soda fountains were still mixing cherry colas to order, one syrup pump at a time. The idea of a cherry cola was not new. It just hadn't been bottled and distributed on a large scale yet, but consumer demand was already baked in. For decades, soda jerks had essentially been conducting market research by figuring out which flavors customers liked the most.
What'll it be, kids?
Cherry soda, please.
Cherry always ranked high. It was the flavor of dates, dances, and diner booths. So, when Coca-Cola began testing cherry variants at the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee, it wasn't starting from scratch. It was catching up. Cherry Coke would eventually emerge from that World's Fair taste test. But for nearly 70 years before that, Cheerwine had already perfected bottled cherry soda in the South. The showdown was inevitable. In 1985, Coca-Cola was embroiled in the height of the Cola Wars with Pepsi, a fierce rivalry that had escalated throughout the decade. Despite being the dominant brand, Coke was losing market share as Pepsi's sweeter flavor gained favor with consumers, especially after the success of Pepsi's Pepsi Challenge. In response, Coke made a bold move by reformulating its flagship drink, introducing new Coke with a taste closer to Pepsi's. However, the backlash was immediate and intense, as loyal Coca-Cola drinkers were outraged by the loss of the original recipe.
I like the old Coke better.
This misstep would ultimately lead to Coca-Cola reintroducing its classic formula just 3 months later. The controversy helped the brand maintain its position as the market leader by reigniting consumer interest in the brand. But even with the market uptick, Coke needed a win. Cherry Coke, originally marketed as Cherry Coca-Cola, officially hit U.S. shelves in the summer of 1985, marking Coca-Cola's first ever extension of its flagship brand. The official version simply bottled what had already become a fan favorite. While the company has never revealed the exact syrup formula, Cherry Cola production typically involves mixing cherry flavoring with Coca-Cola's signature notes of cola nuts, citrus, vanilla, and cinnamon, then carbonating the blend before packaging. Maybe keep that to yourself, just in case. You never know when Coke is listening. The world didn't just like Cherry Coke, they practically threw it a welcome parade. Within 10 weeks of hitting the shelves, a wild 91% of people already knew about it. By the end of 1986, it had elbowed its way into the top 10 soft drinks in the country. And this wasn't just a flashy debut. Cherry Coke had staying power. Decades later, it was still turning heads and twisting caps, with Cherry Cola sales growing year after year. In 2015, 30 years after launch, it was still climbing, with a 2.4% boost in volume and the whole cherry category up 4.4% over 5 years. Cherry Coke's release in 1985 didn't just spark consumer enthusiasm, it kicked off a full-on Cherry Cola race between major soda brands. The New York Times called Cherry Coke a direct shot at Dr. Pepper's Cherry Turf, but Pepsi clearly had no plans to stay on the sidelines. They fired back with Pepsi Wild Cherry in 1988, though Canadians had already seen it years earlier under the name Cherry Pepsi. In fact, Pepsi even tried to sneak it into some cities in late 1985, right as Cherry Coke was launching, like a soda spy mission. Thus began the Great Cherry Cola Wars, a battle waged with bubbles and branding, aimed squarely at kids aged 12 to 17. The original Cherry Coke ad campaign positioned the drink as slightly wild and fun, a tagline that encapsulated the fizzy excitement of a cherry cola that was finally official. In 1990, Coke introduced a fountain-style Cherry Coke with more intense cherry flavor. By 1997, marketing took a more youth-focused turn, with graffiti-style graphics and the slogan, "Do something different." The brand even toured a sampulance, a tricked-out ambulance that handed out samples at teen-centered events. These late 90s campaigns leaned hard into music, technology, and video games, all in an effort to align Cherry Coke with the emerging identity of cool, quirky teens. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Cherry Coke retained a loyal fan base. Its longevity is tied not only to its flavor, but also to Coca-Cola's willingness to adapt the product's image and reach new markets. The product's packaging has gone through multiple transformations. The 1985 can featured a classic cherry red color with white lettering, which evolved into the 1990s to include squiggly black lines. A major 2007 overhaul introduced vibrant pinks and purples, with new can graphics designed in part by Jay-Z as part of a broader campaign. In 2011, the design was cleaned up again to match international branding standards. And by 2019, the one brand strategy introduced the current design, a Coca-Cola red disc with a cherry image against a purple background. And what could possibly follow the pop culture power of Jay-Z in 2017? Obviously, billionaire investor Warren Buffett. The most unexpected moment in Cherry Coke branding came in the late 2010s, when Buffett, famously fond of Cherry Coke, appeared on promotional cans in China. As CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, a major investor in Coca-Cola, Buffett's face graced limited edition packaging as part of a campaign that played off his celebrity status among Chinese investors. Coca-Cola was reportedly surprised when Buffett agreed, and he was not paid for the appearance. Special cans were also distributed at Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting in Omaha. Throughout the years, Coca-Cola has diversified its cherry offerings. Diet Cherry Coke premiered in 1986, later rebranded as Diet Coke Cherry, because apparently word order is everything. In 2018, they cranked up the sass with Diet Coke Feisty Cherry. Spicier name, bolder taste, though the original still lingers in freestyle machines. Coca-Cola Cherry Zero joined the party in 2007 and now answers to the more formal Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Cherry. Cherry Vanilla Coke made the leap from freestyle fan favorite to bottle star. And let's not forget 2006's short-lived Black Cherry Vanilla Coke. Gone too soon. Then came Coca-Cola Cherry Energy in 2020. Yes, a cherry-flavored energy drink, though it burned bright and fast, vanishing from North America not long after. At this point, there are so many cherry variations, you'd need a family tree to keep track. The invention of Coca-Cola Freestyle machines in 2009 radically reshaped how people experience soda, especially Cherry Coke. Before Freestyle, consumers had limited access to niche flavors outside of standard offerings. But with these machines, suddenly dozens of combinations were available at the push of a button. And mixing fountain drinks is one of America's favorite pastimes. Cherry Coke, long a fan favorite, found new life as a base for experimentation. Add a splash of vanilla, raspberry, or lime, and it becomes something else entirely. For many fans, the cherry vanilla mix stood out. So much so that what began as a do-it-yourself freestyle hack eventually made its way to store shelves as an official Coca-Cola flavor. The machines, which track consumer behavior across 51,000 locations, helped push the flavor into bottles and cans, Coke's first permanent launch since 2007. Some reviewers found the canned version lacking the punch of the fountain original, but fans still celebrate the hybrid as a grab-and-go nod to the freestyle experience. Since 2017, Los Angeles residents alone have dispensed around 6.6 million cans worth. Today, Coca-Cola Cherry remains a staple in the cherry cola category, offered in more than 36 countries. Variants like Coca-Cola Cherry, Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Cherry, Diet Coke Cherry, and Cherry Vanilla Coke remain available in different formats. Meanwhile, Pepsi Wild Cherry continues to compete in the space, recently introducing a cream-flavored variant. Meanwhile, Cheerwine, a regional cherry soda from North Carolina, maintains its reputation as the first bottled cherry soda and a beloved local favorite. There is simply no unseating Cheerwine in the Carolinas. Nearly 40 years since its launch, Cherry Coke's enduring popularity speaks to both the strength of its nostalgic roots and its ability to stay relevant through reinvention. Whether served in a glass over ice or cracked open from a vending machine, it remains a slightly wild favorite, tied to generations of cherry cola drinkers who have kept the fizz alive. Now, if only someone would start bottling the Roy Rogers. Today, we're unboxing the question, why is soda packaged the way it is? Okay, now if only they'd make a Dr. Pepper bottle that glows in the dark. Today, soda is mass-produced and shipped all around the world as part of a multi-billion-dollar industry. But its beginnings were much more humble and surprisingly healthy. Carbonated beverages were first developed in the 1760s by an English chemist named Joseph Priestley, who was trying to replicate the natural properties of mineral water. This mad soda scientist was able to infuse water with carbon dioxide by suspending a bowl of distilled water over a vat of beer. Over the decades, other scientists refined Priestley's experiments and added flavoring like honey and lemon to their bubbly brews. Soon, carbonated water, also known as soda water, was being made, bought, and sold over the counter. Originally, these drinks were intended to be medicinal in nature, so the counter they were being sold over was that of your local pharmacy. Soda water was meant to cure stomach aches and various other ailments. But thanks in part to the invention of root beer in the mid-1800s, the attitude toward carbonated beverages started to shift in a decidedly more delicious direction. Though root beer was also originally sold as a cure-all, the sarsaparilla sweetened drink showed consumers that its main benefits were more of the thirst-quenching variety. Suddenly, soft drinks were a tasty treat instead of a stomach-soothing serum. In 1886, American pharmacist John Pemberton rocked the world with his contribution to the growing soda industry, a combination of African cola nuts and South American cocaine. He dubbed this, energizing drink Coca-Cola. Though Pemberton would die just 2 years later, in 1888, the Coca-Cola Company lived on and swiftly became the largest soft drink company in the world, possibly because of cocaine. Today, it retains its legacy with an impressive 46% share of the global market, making tens of billions of dollars a year in revenue. But the Coca-Cola we know today looks and tastes a lot different than it did in 1886, and not just because they changed the recipe. During its early days of popularity, soft drinks were sold strictly from soda fountains and thus were served in glasses. But thirsty consumers wanted to bring their favorite drinks home with them, and so a new method of manufacturing had to be created. While German inventor Jakob Schweppe had been bottling seltzer since the late 1700s, the practice didn't catch on for soda in America until the 1800s. Safely sealing carbonated drinks in glass bottles proved to be a dangerous scientific puzzle to solve. Carbonation requires pressure to occur. Too much pressure can be, well, explosive. But too little means your fizzy drink will fizzle out. Manufacturers had to find a way to balance the pressure and still seal the bottle. The solution came in 1892, when Baltimore-based machine shop operator William Painter patented the first ever method of keeping the beverage bubbly, a crown-shaped bottle cap which is still used today. Just a few years later, in 1899, the Coca-Cola Company jumped on the bottling bandwagon, which helped spread the drink's popularity throughout the country. Like most other soft drinks around this time, Coke's bottles were tall cylinders with bulky blob tops. But as the industry ballooned and manufacturers sharpened their skills, more elaborate designs started popping up all over the place. By 1916, Coke's now iconic bottle was beginning to take shape. The company's board of trustees wanted a bottle so distinct that you would recognize it by feel in the dark or lying broken on the ground. Apparently, they wanted you to be able to identify Coca-Cola in the middle of a bar fight. And so the bottlenecks were tapered down. The bases were reshaped, and the brand's looping script was imprinted onto the green glass. Each bottle weighed about 14.5 ounces, with an additional 6.5 ounces of Coke poured inside. By 1957, Coke ditched the green glass and added fluted lines to create a design that's still recognized the world over. But Coke wasn't the only soft drink in the market for a distinctively branded bottle. Pepsi-Cola was created all the way back in 1893 by Caleb Bradham. And in 1906, it too went in search of a bottle patent. For much of its early existence, Pepsi opted for a simple clear glass bottle with an ergonomically wide base and a long, skinny neck. In 1958, they swapped simple for swirly with the release of the swirl bottle. And while it's seen plenty of redesigns and overhauls, the swirl pattern remains a staple of Pepsi bottles today. The next major overhaul of bottle design came in the 1970s, when both Coke and Pepsi decided to step away from glass altogether in favor of the hot new miracle product, plastic. After an initial boom after World War II, plastic goods saw a second wave of popularity in the 1970s, thanks to improvements in the manufacturing process. Plastic was sold as a clean, inexpensive, and disposable option for things like grocery bags and food packaging, even though the reality is that plastic's durability makes it much more environmentally unfriendly. Both Pepsi and Coke got in on the ground floor, selling their soft drinks in lightweight plastic bottles, which cut down on costs and made shipping their products significantly easier. But things really took a turn when Pepsi introduced the world to the beverage hulk that is the 2-liter PET plastic bottle in 1978. PET plastic, also known as polyethylene terephthalate, was specifically invented to be as lightweight as possible while holding more liquid than ever before. In the 1930s, 6-ounce soft drinks were the norm. By 1955, American appetites had increased and soft drinks doubled in size. The largest available cup size reached a record 21 ounces by 1974, which is still less than 1 liter. When Pepsi's 2-liter PET bottles hit store shelves just 4 years later, they were an instant hit. The impossibly thin plastic products quickly found their way into homes across America, thanks to the relatively low price points and the novelty of being able to buy a sizable volume of soda in one gigantic bottle. These days, 2-liter bottles are simply a fact of life, so the novelty has long since worn off. But they are a distinctly American phenomenon, so why are they measured using the metric system? Well, it just so happens that the advent of Pepsi's 2-liter bottles lined up with a push to switch America from the imperial system to the more universal metric system. While that push ultimately failed, Pepsi's 2-liter bottles became so popular that they stuck around, and other companies even adopted the same unit of measurement. Today, plastic remains a popular material for soda bottles, though your most insufferable friends probably insist that glass is the ultimate soda receptacle. Glass is said to better preserve flavor, leave less of an aftertaste, and remain colder longer than plastic. Well, you're welcome to argue over how much any of that matters. Don't forget, there is a third option. Metal cans have been used for soft drinks since 1938, when Massachusetts-based manufacturer Clico Club developed their first cone-shaped cans for ginger ale. But they weren't particularly popular. Though they were less fragile than glass bottles, early metal cans were made of tin-plated steel, which gave the drinks a distinct metallic taste. Eventually, cone-shaped cans gave way to flat tops, which had to be punched in to drink from, and an acid-resistant liner was developed to tamp down on that metallic-y taste. This somewhat improved the can's appeal, but there wouldn't be a true revolution until American engineer Emil Fraise invented the pull tab in 1959. As the story goes, Fraise forgot his can opener at home while on a camping trip with his family. He was forced to use the bumper of his car to open his beer. The experience was so frustrating that Fraise went on to invent a device that was built into the top of a can that could easily open it without the need for a secondary tool. What else was he supposed to do? Not drink beer on a camping trip? Please. The pull tab became the standard issue, and by 1960, Coca-Cola had fully embraced the aluminum can. Their cans were released with distinctive red and white packaging, featuring an illustration of their iconic bottle on the side. Pepsi quickly followed suit, and with the backing of the two leading soft drink companies, aluminum pull-tab cans became the prevailing style, which are still used today. Of course, the shape of the can has improved over the years. Beveling was added to the top and bottom of the otherwise flat cylinder to better withstand the pressure of carbonation and to provide a better grip while opening the can. They were also supposed to be easier to stack when loose, which became less of a problem in 2001 when Coke changed the game with the invention of the fridge pack. The fridge pack is a long cardboard carton which holds 12 cans of soda at a time. Before their invention, most companies sold soda cans in large cardboard flats, which took up a significant amount of refrigerator real estate. The main selling point of the fridge pack is its condensed shape, which means you have even more room in your icebox to stockpile your choice of seasonally released soda, or vegetables, I guess. The fridge pack was immensely popular upon release, and it has become the most used way to package soda cans across all soft drink companies. But since we can never leave well enough alone, Coke and Pepsi are still fiddling with their cans. In 2011, Pepsi released a taller, sassier Pepsi can, which was met with some derision and even panned as being offensive and thoughtless by the National Eating Disorders Association. Still, skinny cans have persisted and are even seeing a resurgence across all soda brands. Despite the name, skinny cans hold just as much liquid as their wider companions, that being about 12 ounces of sweet, delicious soda. The original short cans have more horizontal surface area for branding, but skinny cans are able to be packed more tightly together. That means larger quantities of product can be shipped at one time, and more cans can be shoved onto store shelves. Skinny cans are also marketed as premium, and sometimes even healthier options than your standard shorties, despite them being essentially the same in every way except height. Still, no matter how it's marketed or packaged, soda continues to be a wildly popular beverage with no signs of falling flat, unless they figure out how to make a flat can, somehow. We don't typically drink milk or juice out of fountains, but for some reason, the soda fountain remains one of the dominant distribution systems for soft drinks. In fact, if you've left your house in the past 50 years, you've likely noticed that pretty much every fast food joint, convenience store, and movie theater now has one. How did soda fountains manage to conquer virtually all of food service? Well, today we're going to take a look at why we drink soda out of fountains. Okay, do they do free refills here? Technically speaking, a soda fountain is a machine that dispenses carbonated water and flavored syrup, which are mixed together into a sparkling beverage known as a fountain drink. During the heyday of such machines, the name soda fountain was also applied to the businesses that housed such equipment and sold such refreshments. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. The story of the soda fountain really begins thousands of years ago, when numerous ancient cultures started to believe in the rejuvenative powers of mineral water. Mineral water, for the record, is water which comes from a mineral spring and, as the name suggests, it contains minerals, like salts and various sulfur compounds. Most importantly for our purposes, though, water from mineral springs can sometimes be naturally carbonated. Since mineral water was highly coveted, it was also valuable, and as a result, entire industries would often be built around natural springs. By the 17th century, someone had hit on the idea of bottling this allegedly medicinal water for sale. And since many of those springs produced carbonated water, that's what wound up in the bottles. As a result, people started to associate carbonated water with medicine. It wouldn't be until the 18th century, however, that scientists finally started figuring out how to carbonate that water themselves. And some of the early methods of doing so utilized sodium bicarbonate. The first British patent for a carbonation process would then be issued in 1807. It didn't use any sodium bicarbonate, but the bubbly liquid it produced still became widely known as soda water. The first American patent for a soda fountain was issued to a doctor named Samuel Fahnestock in 1819. His device was basically just a fancy barrel with a pump and a spigot, but functionally speaking, it wasn't all that different from the soda fountains we know today. That being said, it would really be the far more cost-effective version, invented by New York-based British expat John Matthews in 1832, that changed everything. Matthews' machine was 6 feet long and nearly as tall. It had several spigots, each for dispensing a different liquid, and it was, by all accounts, rather ornate, like a decorative Coke machine. Most importantly, it used a metal-lined chamber to mix sulfuric acid and calcium carbonate, which created carbonated water in quantities large enough to be sold to street vendors and pharmacies. Now, keep in mind that at this point, soda water was still largely seen as curative, and many of the world's most famous soft drinks, including Coke, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper, were originally invented by pharmacists who intended them for medicinal use. As a result, soda fountains quickly became fixtures in pharmacies. Soda fountains continued to grow in popularity right through the beginning of the 20th century. Then, in 1919, the U.S. government would do something that would cause that popularity to absolutely explode. It ratified the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, otherwise known as Prohibition. A near-total ban on alcoholic beverages pretty much killed off the social scene at bars. And all of a sudden, soda fountains became the place to be. A 1915 issue of Soda Fountain magazine, no, really, we're not making this magazine up, even said, "The soda fountain of today is an ally of temperance. Ice cream soda is a greater medium for the cause of temperance than all the sermons ever preached on the subject." As soda fountains continued to evolve mechanically, they started appearing in places like candy stores, department stores, train stations, restaurants, and even barbershops. The businesses themselves were also referred to as soda fountains, and the person who operated the soda fountain became known as a soda jerk. To the modern ear, that sounds like the soda jabroni or the soda melvin. But the jerk, in this case, referred to the physical motion of jerking the fountain spigot to release the soda. It was a term of endearment. Soda jerks were part bartender and part entertainer, and successful ones could even become local celebrities. Soda fountain businesses hit their peak in the 1940s, and by the 1950s, they were an absolutely iconic part of American youth culture. But nothing lasts forever, and the rise of car culture and the shift to suburban living slowly began to change all that. Chains like Walgreens ate away at the pharmacy business, while drive-ins and roadside retailers like Dairy Queen switched to selling prepackaged soda in bottles and cans, which was a better fit for their respective business models. Also hastening the demise of old-fashioned soda fountains was the creation of the soda dispenser, which mixed the syrup and water automatically. Using one simply required holding a cup beneath the spigot, so it eliminated the need for specialists like soda jerks. And with them went the social scene to whom they catered. Today, soda dispensers, which people still refer to as soda fountains, are pretty much all that's left. But if you're determined to get a look at the old-fashioned kind, we're happy to report a handful of the early ones still exist to this very day. Delecta Pharmacy in Warren, Rhode Island, for example, opened their doors in 1858 and is still using a manual soda fountain. And Payne's Soda Fountain and Sandwich Shop, which installed their first soda fountain a decade later in 1868, is still doing business in Scottsboro, Alabama. There are at least a dozen or so more still out there. But if it's something you've wanted to try, you shouldn't dally. Given their ubiquity in the modern food service business, you probably assume that modern science worked all the bugs out of soda fountains long ago. But that's not exactly the case. A 2010 study, for example, found that nearly half of the beverages dispensed from soda fountains were contaminated with something called coliform bacteria. While not particularly dangerous itself, the presence of coliform bacteria in a sample is usually a pretty reliable sign that other, far more dangerous and pathogenic organisms will also be present, often of fecal origin. Some of the samples even contain traces of the considerably more harmful strain known as E. coli, as well as the bacteria Chryseobacterium meningosepticum, which is particularly dangerous to infants and people with weak immune systems.
But wait,
You say,
that study is 15 years old. Surely the problem has been addressed by now.
well, unfortunately, not. A similar study conducted in 2023 found 41% of soda fountains were still contaminated. That same study also found that 25% of soda fountains contained water at a temperature ideal for growing clusters of bacteria, known as biofilms. Long story short, biofilms often contain pathogenic microorganisms which pose serious threats to public health and safety. And while no one's trying to gross you out, a 2017 investigation in Florida found soda fountain nozzles contaminated with slimy black and green mold-like substances during surprise inspections at local restaurants. And let's not forget how much bugs love sugar, which is usually a main ingredient in soda syrup. It's not unheard of for a restaurant employee to open up a soda fountain and find the inside swarming with cockroaches. Regular cleaning is supposed to prevent that type of thing, and most soda fountains have strict guidelines covering how often they should be serviced. Drink manufacturers like Coke and Pepsi are also pretty clear that the nozzles and syrup connectors should be removed and sanitized on a daily basis. But overworked restaurant workers trying to get everything done at an understaffed establishment often skip cleaning tasks that aren't plainly visible to the clientele. In other words, it's usually easy to spot if the floor hasn't been mopped, but unless you have X-ray vision, telling if the soda fountain has been cleaned is pretty much impossible, so it doesn't always get done. Ultimately, most soda fountains are still probably safe to drink from. But if you want to be 100% sure you're not drinking from a moldy E. coli bath for cockroaches, you should drink something that's bottled or canned. The catch there, of course, is that bottled and canned soda tends to be more expensive than soda from a fountain, mostly because the price of bottled and canned sodas factor in packaging and shipping costs that don't really apply to the fountain version. But you may find it's a small price to pay to sidestep the whole fecal contamination thing. Despite the sanitary issues, soda fountains are still everywhere today, and they have a cult-like following who insist that fountain soda is better than the bottled stuff. Soda manufacturers, for their part, uniformly say the fountain contains the same exact stuff you'll find in bottles and cans, but the fans aren't entirely imagining it either. Different retailers can set their own syrup-to-water ratio. That's why the fountain soda you get at McDonald's can taste strikingly different than the one you get at somewhere like Panera Bread. In fact, a small Coke at McDonald's usually contains around 40 grams of sugar, while the similar size you'll get at a Panera contains 67. In other words, certain fountain sodas might genuinely taste sweeter than what you get out of the bottles and cans. And except for Coke, which ships their syrup in stainless steel glass tanks, fountain soda syrup tends to be shipped in plastic bags. The acetaldehyde from those bags can get into the syrup itself, and that also ultimately affects the taste of the soda. Similarly, soda cans are coated with a polymer lining that is known to absorb some of the flavor from the liquid. That means canned soda might objectively taste milder than the soda that comes out of bottles or fountains, even though they all contain the same ingredients. Heck, even the type of cup and straw you use to consume the soda can affect its taste. So yes, fountain soda truly does taste different. And, although it's obviously subjective, you might really like that taste better than the bottled or canned option. Just like other types of technology, soda fountains continue to evolve and improve. Take, for example, Coca-Cola's Freestyle soda fountain, which was introduced back in 2009. The Freestyle, which you've probably seen in a movie theater or fast food restaurant, is a soda fountain controlled by a digital touchscreen. It contains a jaw-dropping 165 different Coca-Cola products, including a few custom flavors. Consumers put their cup under the dispenser, and then they use the screen to select which beverage they want, even if it's a mixture of more than one type. Newer models even include Bluetooth, so it can interface with a mobile app. The Freestyle system has been such a success for Coke, their biggest rival, Pepsi, decided to make their own version, which, for some reason, they called the Pepsi Spire. The Spire doesn't offer nearly as many options as the Freestyle. The mere fact that it exists is a pretty good sign that the digital touchscreen system represents the future of soda fountains. Of course, the way things are going these days, we'll all soon be getting our cola from some fancy AI soda fountain that will pick the flavors for you. But for now, we all get to be our own soda jerks. If you're one of those people who thinks the Coca-Cola served at McDonald's tastes different than the Coke served at other places, good news, you're not crazy. The Coke at McDonald's actually does have a unique flavor, and some say it's better than canned Coke or Coke from other restaurants.
How do you even drink that?
And we know why. So, today we're going to take a look at why Coke at McDonald's tastes so different. Okay, time to have a Coke and a smile, and a Big Mac. McDonald's and Coke was a match pretty much everyone, but health food advocates, agree was made in heaven. The relationship actually goes way back to 1955, when Disneyland was first opening in California. Rock Around the Clock was burning up the charts, and Marty McFly was trying to get his parents to kiss at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. It was also the year entrepreneur Ray Kroc first met Coca-Cola executive Waddy Pratt, and they must have hit it off pretty well, because within a few hours the two agreed to work together to expand their brands to every corner of the globe. That agreement means McDonald's is the only client that has an entire division at Coca-Cola devoted to it. In fact, it's often joked that McDonald's is among the top 5 countries that Coca-Cola sells to, which would make Ronald president? No. Ronald's king of that realm. The two companies work closely to manage the beverages served at McDonald's. And to that end, they've developed several processes that are entirely unique to the way each brand operates. The companies even have a deal that prevents Coca-Cola from selling their syrup to other restaurants for less than what McDonald's pays, no matter what that means for their bottom line. In this business, you don't even think about undercutting the clown. However, based on how well they've done over the past 70 years or so, we think this deal has worked out just fine for both parties. Most people don't realize it, but how and when the ingredients of soda are combined can make a difference in how the final product tastes. And unlike soda that comes in a bottle or can, fountain sodas are mixed the moment they start pouring from the tap. Basically, canned soda is kind of like frozen fish. If you want the best Coke, you have to get it straight from the stream. The soda syrup and the carbonated water are stored and dispensed by the machine separately, and then only mix once they actually fill your cup. This makes the taste of fountain drinks, in general, different from the taste of pre-mixed sodas, and many believe it results in a fresher flavor, including McDonald's. Mickey D's has consistently worked to make their Coke products taste as fresh as possible, and managing their drink machines is a big part of that. The company has a set of strict guidelines for their restaurants that ensures consistency across their thousands of locations. Locations that don't meet the corporate standard have their managers taken out to a field and clubbed by the fry guys, we assume. McDonald's aims to make it so that no matter which location you're visiting, the Coke they serve will taste identical to the Coke at every other McDonald's in the world. It's an ambitious goal, and not one that all of their competitors have pursued. That's largely because of the amount of syrup and carbon dioxide those competitors mix into their Coke. For example, some places deliberately put more syrup than is recommended into the mix in order to make their Coke taste sweeter. And while most companies usually have a standard recipe to work off of, individual locations may not always adhere to that standard. McDonald's, on the other hand, has always made a concerted effort to enforce their Coke standard, like Tony Montana. For the kind of people who notice such things, it definitely shows. Interestingly, McDonald's actually puts less syrup in their drinks than many other chains. A small Coke from McDonald's contains 40 grams of sugar, but over at a place like Panera Bread, you'll be served a Coke with as much as 67 grams of sugar in it. That's a fairly significant difference. Why? Well, presumably because Panera realizes it's just nowhere near as fun as McDonald's, so they're reaching for any advantage they can get, and the debut of their Panera burglar mascot went over like a lead balloon. But more importantly, McDonald's has managed to determine the exact ratio of syrup to put into their Cokes in order to capture that unique taste that they believe their customers love. And they're not going 1 gram of sugar over. Come on, they've already got the play place. They don't need to convince you they're fun. Mixing the ingredients of a soda is a lot more complicated than it seems. Even slight differences in syrup ratio, drink temperature, or carbonation levels can drastically affect the taste of fountain Coke. But McDonald's ain't having that. Over the years, they've gone to great lengths to ensure their Coke meets a certain standard. They even account for the effect that melting ice can have on flavor. Seriously, these people spend a lot of time thinking about soda. Do Coke sommeliers exist? If they do, McDonald's has several on the payroll. But as anyone who's ever drank a Coke before can tell you, melted ice absolutely affects the flavor. As the ice in the soda melts, the water begins to dilute the syrup ratio in the cup. This makes the drink less sweet over time. But people want ice. Have you ever had a warm Coke? Probably not, because they're against the Geneva Convention. So, McDonald's adds just enough extra syrup to reduce this effect. Practically speaking, this means that your first sip of McDonald's Coke is going to be a little sweeter than your fifth, but the drop-off is designed to be as invisible as Grimace's zipper. The chain also pre-chills its syrup before it's mixed into your drink. This is critical not only to prevent dilution, but also to keep the soda carbonated longer. Carbonation decreases rapidly at higher temperatures, which means your drink becomes less carbonated the warmer it gets. Not every restaurant and fast food chain pre-chills its syrup. In fact, the majority of fountain drink machines use a flash chilling system that is generally considered much less efficient than McDonald's pre-chilling method. To go the extra mile, McDonald's even pre-chills the water that goes into the Coke. Not only that, the actual drink fountain itself is refrigerated. Yeah, the entire fountain beverage system at McDonald's is kept at a chilled temperature thanks to insulated tubing. The tubes connect the restaurant's fountain machines to a refrigeration unit in the back, and water is continuously pumped through the system in order to keep it in the range of 33 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about as cold as the water can get before hitting the freezing point. The low temperature is also great for maintaining carbonation levels in the water. The whole process is a bit Willy Wonka by way of strip mall fast food joint, but it's a small price to pay for the world's most perfect Coke. Unless you order it without ice. If you're one of those people who doesn't like watered-down drinks, or you're some kind of weirdo who enjoys warm soda, you're going to get a strange-tasting Coke. The company's soda is literally designed to be served with ice, so the flavor is fairly different without it. Your mileage may vary on whether it's better or worse, but it's not what the Golden Arches recommends. A big part of the alchemy behind making good Coke is simply in making sure the syrup doesn't spoil. Yeah, soda goes bad. Have you ever seen a spoiled box of soda syrup? It's like a bunch of ants stumbled into the gluttony crime from 7. To keep the syrup from going bad, you need to keep it as chilled as possible. To accomplish this, McDonald's actually developed its own fairly clever system of transporting, storing, and dispensing Coca-Cola. While most restaurants store their syrup in plastic bags, McDonald's uses special steel storage tanks designed to keep their contents cool. Plastic bags are much more vulnerable to the elements, and bags left open in the air can warm up over time. So before you know it, boom, you're left with a spoiled bag of soda you have to sell at a discounted rate. The steel tanks McDonald's uses protects the syrup from those kinds of temperature changes, as well as against air and even light exposure. In addition to keeping the drinks cold, the insulated tubing system is also there to ensure that the Coke maintains its satisfying, fizzy taste. To dissolve carbon dioxide into water, it must be kept at a low temperature and under high pressure, like a penguin with a gambling debt. Cold water traps the carbon dioxide required for carbonation, which is why colder sodas don't go flat as quickly as warm ones. Carbonation also adds a sharp, bitter sensation that is actually caused by a chemical reaction in the drink. When carbon dioxide dissolves in water, small traces of the carbon compound react with the water to create carbonic acid, a mild acid, an antibiotic that helps keep soda water cleaner for longer. Don't worry, there isn't going to be a test later or anything.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist.
As if all that space-age soda fountain technology wasn't enough,
That is seriously cool.
McDonald's actually filters the water in its drinks before it is used in the fountain dispensers. Ronald's lips don't touch a drop of Coke unless it's been brewed with Evian. Mickey D's filtration system is state-of-the-art, with water filtered multiple times before it is ever served to a customer. A big reason for this is making sure Coke tastes the same in every McDonald's. You see, natural water sources differ in many ways, and can include different types of minerals. Like wine, you can often tell which region a certain water is from based on its unique mineral flavors. This phenomenon is known as terroir, and it's something McDonald's tries desperately to avoid. Because they have restaurants all over the globe, McDonald's has to make sure that local water sources do not affect the taste of their drinks. The best way to do that is to have a uniform filtration system that pumps out consistent results no matter which water source is being used. And as an added benefit, customers get to enjoy Coke as fresh and delicious as a mountain spring. Ever stop to consider whether the straw you're using changes the taste of the drink you're drinking? Well, McDonald's has. Its straws are a little bit wider than the industry standard, so that customers can enjoy bigger sips. They claim this embiggened straw ensures that Coke can wash over your taste buds more efficiently, which may be true, but straws also play another important role. Straws are designed so that sippers are always drinking from the bottom of their cup, and there's a reason for that. Over time, the water and syrup start to separate into different layers and spoil the taste. The bottom of the cup is where the syrup and water are most thoroughly mixed, and every sip helps you mix it a little bit more. You're technically doing a little bit of work for McDonald's every time you take a drink, which is okay. In lieu of back pay, we'll accept a shoebox full of chicken nuggets, please. Finally, the taste of soda depends on the medium you're drinking from. According to one soda expert, tall glasses are ideal because the carbonated bubbles are able to float upwards through more of the soda. But that's not to say that glass retains carbonation better than plastic. Both glass and aluminum containers are slightly porous, which means carbon dioxide can escape through small imperfections in the material. Plastic, on the other hand, is not nearly as porous and traps the gas more efficiently. This is likely why McDonald's serves some of its beverages in plastic cups, although they also use paper cups as well. So there you have it. all of the intricate science and technology behind the uniquely fresh flavor of McDonald's Coke, engineered by the finest food scientists in the business, who presumably all have giant cheeseburger heads.
Since its invention by John Pemberton in 1886, Coca-Cola has become the most well-known soft drink in the world. Yet, after 130 years, the recipe for Coke remains unknown to the public. That's a long time to zip your lips. So how did they do it? Well, today, we're investigating how Coca-Cola has kept its formula a secret for all these years. Okay, time to grab a Coke and a smile. While John Pemberton is technically the creator of the beloved carbonated beverage known the world over as Coca-Cola, he sold the company to Asa Candler soon after its invention in 1886. We imagine Pemberton would have regretted the sale if he knew how big his creation would someday become. But he wouldn't have regretted it for long, because he died in 1888. Hopefully they at least buried him with his Coke money and a cooler full of the real thing. Candler then became Coca-Cola's sole proprietor in 1892. For more than a quarter century after that, the recipe was disclosed only by word of mouth, like a whispered legend. The first time it was written down was when Ernest Woodruff acquired the company in 1919. Woodruff used the secret formula as collateral for the loan he needed to finalize his purchase of the company. According to Coca-Cola's website, the recipe was written down and placed in a bank vault in New York. Once the loan was repaid, Woodruff returned the recipe to Atlanta and locked it up tight for the next 86 years. Today, it rests in the World of Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta. And you can go see it. Sort of. While Coca-Cola did tell the media it sent its secret formula to be put on display within the vault of the secret formula, you don't actually get to see that formula. You just get to see the outside of a vault. The rest of your enjoyment is based solely on the power of your imagination. The formula is still allegedly sealed within this elaborately decorated vault, which is equipped with a palm scanner, a numerical code pad, and massive steel door. The mood is further intensified with red lighting and smoke machines, as though they're expecting the band Kiss to show up trying to steal it. The vault has become an attraction for the Coke Museum, tempting guests with the promise of becoming closer than ever before to the secret formula, which apparently is a big thrill for some. Perhaps sensing that looking at the door of a vault might not be worth the price of admission, the exhibit was given a few more bells and whistles, including an immersive multimedia journey toward the chamber of the secret formula. What does that mean? Well, as you head toward the vault, you learn about the origins of the secret formula, how competitors tried to copy the success of Coca-Cola, how the owners of Coca-Cola kept the formula secret throughout the years, and how the secrecy spawned a trove of myths and legends. And after that exciting journey through the history of your favorite beverage, you get to stand next to a door and think about Coke even more. It sounds a little silly, but if you've ever mistakenly given a Coke lover a Pepsi, or God help you, an RC, you know that this experience is more meaningful to some people than the moon landing. At this point, we're sure at least some of you are wondering how the formula for Coca-Cola can be both a closely guarded secret while simultaneously being printed on every can and bottle of the stuff in the world. Well, the truth is, what's written on the can isn't the formula, it's the ingredients. And it's not even really that. Coca-Cola actually hides unknown ingredients behind the catch-all of natural flavors, which you'll see printed on every bottle and can. This is especially unhelpful given that the Food and Drug Administration has no standard definition for the word natural. What the FDA considers natural includes the following: the essential oil, oleoresin, essence, or extractive protein hydrosolate, distillate, or any product of roasting, heating, or enzymolysis, which contains the constituents derived from a spice, fruit or fruit juice, vegetable or vegetable juice, edible yeast, herb, bark, bud, root, leaf, or similar plant material, meat, seafood, poultry, eggs, dairy products, or fermentation products thereof, whose significant function in food is flavoring rather than nutritional. Natural! Researchers at Ohio State University have claimed that the natural flavors in Coca-Cola include coca leaves, vanilla, and cinnamon. But how much of each ingredient constitutes the soda's signature flavor, or what other ingredients may contribute to it, is still anyone's guess. Our money is on eggs and bark. One of the ways Coca-Cola has safeguarded its signature beverage is by securing an exclusive deal with the only company in the U.S. permitted by the Drug Enforcement Administration to import and de-cocainize the coca leaf, the Step-In Company. Since Stepan is the only company with access to this key ingredient, it would be impossible for competitors to get their hands on the processed coca leaf. This means even if they had the secret formula, they couldn't recreate it even if they wanted to. Unless they go through Tony Montana.
Say hello to my little friend!
For the record, the Coca-Cola company denies that its fizzy beverage has ever contained cocaine. That being said, its original incarnation did possess trace amounts of the substance until 1929, when it was removed from the drink completely. Incidentally, the Great Depression began that same year, and there is simply no way that is a coincidence. Given that Coca-Cola remains one of the most popular products around the world after nearly a century and a half, you might be surprised to learn that the delectable syrup Coke is made from has never been patented. The Walt Disney Company presumably just had several heart attacks. Why wouldn't a company that's locked its top secret formula behind an elaborate vault armor it up with every available legal protection? Well, at a time when medical patents were popping up left and right, Pemberton decided not to patent his drink, and it then became Coca-Cola Company policy. One possible reason for this is that, because patents expire, the company fears one day others will be able to profit from their product. In other words, a well-kept secret is better protection than a patent. However, according to Mark Pendergast, author of For God, Country, and Coca-Cola, the company kept the formula secret, partly in order to increase sales with a sense of special mystery and to prevent competition, but also to keep people from knowing how cheap the ingredients were and how large the profits. And given what we know about American capitalism, we're willing to gamble that the explanation most closely tied to protecting the bottom line is probably the correct one. Coca-Cola was first introduced in India in 1949, just 2 years after the country gained independence from Britain. But 2 decades later, the Indian Parliament passed a new set of regulations known as the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act of 1973. The act required all foreign companies to give 60% of their equity to Indian subsidiaries. The act also required companies to disclose sensitive information to the Indian government. In the case of IBM, that meant its computer codes. In the case of Coca-Cola, it meant their top secret formula, and you already know how Coke feels about that.
Get down!
It was a bold move by the Indian government, but it's not like Coke was just gonna pack up and leave a country with over 500 million people in it. Oh, that's exactly what they did? That's some secret. The Coca-Cola Company exited India in 1977. It would not disclose its secret recipe, no matter the cost. India began opening its economy to foreign businesses again in the early 1990s, and Coca-Cola made a comeback in 1993. Over the decades, various people and groups have come forward claiming to have discovered the recipe. And every time this happens, the Coca-Cola Company releases a statement labeling the claim as not authentic. One well-known example of this is when the radio show This American Life revealed what they claimed to be the recipe during one of their episodes in 2011.
We think we may have found the original recipe for Coca-Cola, and I am not kidding.
A staff researcher uncovered a newspaper column from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in 1979 that included a recipe for Coca-Cola. Historian Mark Pendergast compared this column to a recipe he found in the Coca-Cola archives and said that they were nearly identical. It kind of seemed like the jig was up, but the Coca-Cola Company vehemently denied the legitimacy of the newspaper column and of Pendergast's research. Coca-Cola archivist Phil Mooney even used his company's favorite catchphrase when explaining its stance: not authentic. Of course, it's not like they'd admit it even if someone did get it right. That's, not how you keep a secret. Of course, This American Life wasn't the first to try to disclose what ingredients make up Coca-Cola, or at least what ingredients its researchers believed made it up. Other historians and even Coca-Cola Company employees have attempted to reveal the truth about the drink. The recipe released by the radio show and corroborated by others includes fluid extract of coca, citric acid, caffeine, sugar, water, lime juice, vanilla, caramel, alcohol, orange oil, lemon oil, nutmeg oil, coriander oil, neroli oil, and cinnamon oil. In 2006, a disgruntled Coca-Cola employee attempted to sell the recipe to Pepsi. Sounds like a highly lucrative idea. After all, Pepsi must be willing to do anything to get its hands on the recipe for Coke, right? Turns out, not so much. Pepsi turned the leaked information over to the FBI, and the employee, Joya Williams, and her 2 accomplices were sentenced to jail time. Soda is apparently thicker than water. Well, the syrup is anyway. While the hunt for the elusive recipe has taken on a life of its own, whether or not anyone ever actually figures it out isn't likely to have much of an impact on the Coca-Cola Company. Why? Well, put simply, there's virtually no way anyone could make Coca-Cola for less money than the Coca-Cola company does. Or, as Mark Pendergast put it, why would anyone go out of their way to buy a fake Coca-Cola that would cost more than the cheaply manufactured real one? That's an excellent point, Mark. The company agrees. One spokesperson even echoed Pendergast's words, wondering, why would anyone go out of their way to buy Yum Yum, which is really just like Coca-Cola but costs more, when they can buy the real thing anywhere in the world? Think about it. The Coca-Cola company has spent untold fortunes on making sure every single human being in the world recognizes their product and asks for it by name. And they've been at it for almost 130 years. They even got to Santa. Even if someone leaked the recipe today, like right after you finish watching this video, it likely wouldn't affect the sales of Coca-Cola much. And not just because nobody wants to waste an afternoon whipping up a hot, homemade batch of Sync Coke when they can just buy actual Coke at the store. It isn't the formula on its own that carries the weight, it's the name attached to it. Come on, nobody wants to have a Yum Yum and a smile.
Diet Coke break. Diet Coke break.
Sugar-free sodas exploded in popularity during the fad diet craze of the late 20th century, earning plus-sized profits by promising smaller waistlines to their thirsty customers. But one can towered above the rest: the Silver Bullet Diet Coke. The guilt-free soda grew so popular that in its heyday, it was more of a lifestyle product than a soft drink. So, today we're popping the tab on the cult of Diet Coke. Okay, hope you're ready to chug a six-pack. In 1767, chemist Joseph Priestley figured out how to infuse water with bubbles of carbon dioxide, thus conjuring into existence the very idea of carbonated liquid. The resulting soda was originally thought to be medicinal, perhaps because bubbles make any liquid look vaguely sciencey. But about 100 years later, pharmacist Charles Elmer Hires made a commercial brand of root beer. Dr. Pepper hit the shelves in 1885, Coca-Cola was invented in 1886, and from there on out, soda was the product we all know and love today. By the 1950s, however, Americans were becoming obsessed with weight loss. Thus, a few companies took a crack at creating a diet soda, and in 1952, one called No Kale became a minor success with dieters. In 1955, the good people at RC Cola began test marketing a new soda called Diet Right, and by 1962, they were distributing it nationwide. The stuff was so well-liked, it quickly became the fourth best-selling soda in the country. Diet Right proved there was a mass market for diet soda, and the competitors took note. Inspired by Diet Right's success, and eager to steal that success for themselves, Coca-Cola and Pepsi quickly got to work on their own diet sodas. But just because they wanted to cash in on diet soda didn't mean they wanted to be associated with it. Both companies were afraid that the failure of a new product with their flagship name would be bad for their brands, so they hedged their bets. Coke entered the market in 1963 with a beverage they called Tab, a name chosen because it was short and inoffensive in any language. Although you shouldn't say it to any ETs. Tab is a grievous insult on their home planet. Tab was an original formula, sweetened with cyclamate and saccharin, allegedly designed to mimic the taste of Coke, but it really didn't come anywhere close. Pepsi, for their part, called its entry into the diet soda wars Patio Diet Cola, possibly because whoever came up with the name was also in the outdoor furniture business. Unlike Coke, however, once it was clear the diet soda market wasn't going anywhere, Pepsi shifted course and rechristened Patio as Diet Pepsi in 1964. Coke stuck with its Tab brand, still unwilling to taint the Coca-Cola name with a word as gauche as diet. But it was a tab they should have pulled. By the end of its first year, the oddly named drink hadn't even captured 10% of the diet soda market. Diet Pepsi and Tab continued to square off in the marketplace for the next 2 decades, with Diet Pepsi generally dominating. Until the 1980s, when Coca-Cola finally got tired of getting their soda flattened and decided to change everything. In 1982, fed up with seeing Diet Pepsi outselling its diet soda products like Tab and Fresca, Coca-Cola released the first new product to use the Coca-Cola trademark since the original Coke debuted in 1886, Diet Coke.
Introducing Diet Coke. You're gonna drink it just for the taste of it.
Just for the taste of it.
Development on a Tab replacement actually started as early as 1975. A top-secret project that even most Coke employees and executives did not know was in the works, like Black Ops Soda. Wait, isn't that a Mountain Dew flavor? The product that would eventually become Diet Coke was a response to the company's marketing research, which showed their aging baby boomer customers were increasingly looking to cut calories and would be much happier buying something with a Coke name on it. Because, let's face it, nobody likes Tab, except Marty McFly.
Give me a tab.
Tab? I can't give you a tab unless you order something.
But despite bearing the Coke name, the formula for Diet Coke isn't actually based on Coke. It's based on that red-headed stepchild, Tab, with a change from saccharin to aspartame, a new artificial sweetener that was all the rage, despite controversies over its FDA approval process. Diet Pepsi's reign of terror was over. Diet Coke's reign of terror was just beginning.
We seem to be down to our last Diet Coke. A gentleman is on his way to pick some up. Just look for a black car.
Diet Coke was introduced to the world with a star-studded marketing blitz powered by the slogan, "Just for the taste of it," which encouraged consumers to drink Diet Coke for its great taste, not just its low-calorie content. Coca-Cola's association with Columbia Pictures ensured that Diet Coke product placement was all over TV and movies. And a clever commercial featuring a group of office women ogling a hunky construction worker drinking a Diet Coke made the beverage popular in the fashion industry. Endorsed by luminaries like Elton John, Paula Abdul, and Demi Moore, celebrities drinking Diet Coke became a common sight. In fact, Diet Coke got so popular so quickly, it became something of a cultural symbol, a product that embodied a determination to indulge oneself repeatedly, without any consequences. By 1983, Diet Coke was the #1 selling diet soda, and the #1 selling soda among women. By 1984, it was the third best-selling soda overall. By the close of the 1980s, Advertising Age magazine named Diet Coke the #1 brand of the whole decade. They even did commercial tie-ins with Batman and Indiana Jones. Take that, Diet Pepsi. Over the years, Diet Coke's hardcore fans have included everyone from President Bill Clinton to President Donald Trump to President Taylor Swift. Oops, got ahead of ourselves there. Trump is said to have consumed as many as 12 cans a day in the Oval Office.
This is a very ominous looking because of the red button.
What does that get you when you press the red button? Well, it gets you a Coke.
And Clinton downed so much of the stuff he put a can in his presidential time capsule. Yeah, presidents make time capsules, like in summer camp. The Oval Office doesn't always have to be so serious. Elon Musk, the world's richest Diet Coke addict, has repeatedly tweeted, X'd, about his love for the beverage, proclaiming that he liked Diet Coke so much he didn't even care if it lowered his life expectancy. Now that is devotion. And that level of fervor isn't unusual among Diet Coke fans. Beliefs common to members of the DC cult tend to include a rigid insistence that its taste is better than the newer competing product, Coke Zero, and that the best Diet Coke is to be had from soda fountains, especially those at McDonald's. But you might be surprised to learn that Diet Coke actually does taste different at McDonald's. We did a whole episode about it. One of the things that differentiated Diet Coke from Tab was its taste, the result of the use of aspartame. Only one problem, aspartame might not be that good for people. In fact, as recently as 2023, the World Health Organization released a report in which a committee of 25 experts concluded that aspartame might cause cancer in humans. Oopsie, that's not the kind of weight loss most people had in mind. According to the WHO's doctors, none of whom are the doctor from Doctor Who, the occasional ingestion of aspartame isn't going to kill anyone. But they argued that people who consume high levels of aspartame, like, say, people who drink large quantities of Diet Coke, should be wary.
That's 144 ounces of President fuel.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration disagreed, issuing a contradictory statement saying aspartame is not actually linked to cancer, and that the WHO wasn't changing their recommendations when it came to daily intake. The International Sweeteners Association piled on, calling the study not scientifically comprehensive. Although, to be fair, they've got a bit of skin in the game. As to the entirely separate but no less controversial issue of whether the use of artificial sweeteners actually helps people lose weight, the jury is still out. The WHO, for their part, now recommends not using them as a weight loss aid.
Long-term consumption of sweeteners is actually not protective against body weight gain.
Nothing lasts forever, not even Twinkies and cockroaches. By the 2010s, Diet Coke's dominance in the marketplace had dissolved like so much carbonated foam on the top of a soft drink, leaving sales flat. The increasing popularity of bottled water was cutting into the market for diet sodas, so Coke made some changes, lest we all be doomed to a world where we only have boring old water to drink. First of all, they adjusted the shape of the can, making it taller and slimmer. Despite the fact that the volume didn't change, the company hoped the new shape would make it more popular with millennials, who we guess are really into shapes. Maybe the can is designed to more easily fit into a TikTok frame. More substantively, they also released 4 Diet Coke flavor variants: Zesty Blood Orange, Feisty Cherry, Twisted Mango, and Ginger Lime. Mix them all together, and we assume you get Diet Voltron. Go ahead, try it. It wasn't the first time the company tried expanding on the Diet Coke brand. Caffeine-free and cherry versions were released in the early 1980s. And the early aughts brought varieties like Diet Coke with lemon, Diet Vanilla Coke, Diet Coke with lime, Diet Coke with Splenda, Diet Black Cherry Coke, and several more. The can has since reverted to its original shape, but overall, the Millennial Marketing Initiative was a huge success. According to one estimate, these changes increased the value of the Diet Coke brand almost 20% in 1 year. Since then, Coke has also introduced Diet Coke Strawberry Guava, Diet Coke Blueberry Acai, and Diet Coke Twisted Strawberry varieties. Truly, there is a Diet Coke for all seasons. As Diet Coke's success began to level off, so did its popularity with men. As a result, the Coca-Cola company went back to the lab and created a whole new drink, Coke Zero. Unlike Diet Coke, Coke Zero had the inherent advantage of being based directly on the formula for classic Coke. Sweetened with a combination of aspartame and acesulfame potassium, Coke Zero is generally considered to be closer in taste and sweetness to the real thing. Originally marketed as a men's soda, contrasting Diet Coke's more feminine brand image, Coke Zero became wildly popular with consumers. Since its introduction, it has greatly cut into the sales of Diet Coke. But Diet Coke disciples need not worry. According to the people at Coke, there's no plans to change the formula of Diet Coke or pull it from the market anytime soon. Just don't call it Tab. Generic product knockoffs are an American tradition. For every Transformer, there's a Transmorpher. The world of sodas is no exception. Ersatz soft drinks are everywhere, and a lot of them are made by the company Shasta. How do they avoid getting sued out of existence? Well, today we're bubbling up the answer to how Shasta keeps getting away with this. As a company, Shasta goes all the way back to 1889. That's the same year Butch Cassidy robbed his first bank, the Eiffel Tower opened for business, and Mark Twain released A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. But while it's fun to think about Mark Twain chugging a Shasta, the disappointing truth is that in 1889, Shasta only sold bottled water. In fact, it started as the Shasta Mineral Springs Company. Located conveniently at the base of Mount Shasta in Siskiyou County, California, the company sold water bottled from Shasta Springs. And now you know where the name comes from. The company eventually expanded its product line, offering flavored water beverages as early as the 1920s. It wasn't until 1931 that Shasta started selling soda, a ginger ale to be precise. And by then, Mark Twain was long dead. And that rumor is not greatly exaggerated. But to start, people weren't really drinking Shasta like a regular soda. Shasta products, which also included things like club soda and mineral water, were thought more as mixers for cocktails. Drinking a soda before then would be like taking a swig of grenadine. By the 1960s, Shasta was a full-on soda company purchased by Consolidated Foods, the company that later started going by the more personable-sounding name Sara Lee. Under Sarah's guidance, Shasta grew into a nationally recognized brand. By the 1980s, they decided to increase their marketing budget to raise their profile. To that end, they figured they would need a new advertising jingle. And to write that jingle, they would turn to the single most obvious possible candidate for the job: industrial metal band Ministry's frontman, Al Jorgensen. Yes, that's right. When it came to getting a song for their big new I Want a Shasta campaign, they turned to the same soulful wordsmith who wrote the lines, "I only kill to know I'm alive. So what? So what?" die, 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 die. But he also wrote From Beer to Eternity, so his authority on beverages can't be denied. In fairness, he wasn't Ministry's Al Jorgensen when Shasta put him on the payroll in 1983. At that point, he was more like Al Jorgensen, the guy who wrote TV jingles to make ends meet. In his own words, before Sire Records picked up Ministry, I was writing TV and radio jingles to help support our drug habits, pay the rent, and feed the baby. I did a commercial for Shasta and some stuff for Huffy, and every time I left the studio, I wanted to off myself. If music be the food of love, play on. The 1980s would also bring the now iconic It Has to Be Shasta campaign. And by the 1990s, Shasta made its mark in pop culture. It was name-checked by the Beastie Boys on their iconic album Check Your Head, and made cameo appearances in TV shows like Seinfeld and movies like M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. Swing away, Shasta. Shasta may have a copycat's reputation, but the company has lots of firsts under its aluminum belt. For example, in 1953, it became the first company to start selling soft drinks in cans, a practice that's become ubiquitous in the beverage industry. That same year, it became one of the first companies to start selling a low-calorie version of its product. And in the 1960s, it became the first soda company to make a sugar-free drink, and the first to use the now standard 12-ounce can. Then, in the 1970s, they became the first soda company to replace sugar with high-fructose corn syrup. Shasta, you magnificent so-and-sos. All these groundbreaking moves by Shasta were copied by every other soda player in the biz. So it's hard to completely fault Shasta for borrowing a few ideas from the same competitors that borrowed all of theirs. For example, from the folks who make Mountain Dew, Shasta borrowed, well, basically the entire idea of Mountain Dew, half of its name, and the look of its branding. And with all that, they created Mountain Rush, a knockoff soda which is a lot like Mountain Dew, but also brings to mind the Canadian rock band Rush. So it's a win-win. From the good people at Dr. Pepper, the Shasta folks have created the very creatively named knockoff Dr. Shasta. And wouldn't you know it, the can directly references the iconic red and white color scheme that Dr. Pepper has used for decades. And who could forget that memorable jingle, I'm a Shasta? Just to prove that truly no one is safe, the Shasta folks fired a shot across the bow of Hawaiian Punch with their shamelessly branded Tiki Punch. And we're guessing they would have gone after Kool-Aid too, but who wants to make that guy angry? He knocks down walls when he's in a good mood.
Oh, yeah!
It's also hard not to notice a resemblance between Shasta's Zazz caffeine-free grapefruit soda and Squirt's caffeine-free grapefruit soda, a product that dates back to 1938. And in a more general way, it seems pretty clear the red and white color scheme of Shasta Cola was more than a little inspired by Coca-Cola's iconic colors. At some level, it seems like imitation this blatant should be against some kind of rule. But the truth is, it's nothing unique to the soft drink industry. In fact, some of the most famous and iconic brands you'll find on supermarket shelves are knockoffs. Oreo cookies, for example, debuted in stores after Hydrox, a sandwich cookie now often perceived as an Oreo knockoff.
Some kids have trouble remembering my name. I don't understand why.
Pop-Tarts stole the rug out from under a product called Country Squares, which were later renamed Toast 'em Pop-Ups to evoke the name of their more successful imitator. Knockoff products are even a standard part of many supermarket business models. Costco is well known for its in-house Kirkland brand that mimics more expensive brand name items for a lower price. And Trader Joe's is famous for its store brand knockoffs, including their own brand of imitation Oreos known as JoJo's. Fake Oreos. Would those be faux Rios? Whatever you choose to call them, it seems everyone has their own version. So how is this possible? If you're going into the product cloning business, you need to be very clear on one point. Knockoff products are not the same thing as counterfeit products. Counterfeit products are when you sell goods under someone else's trademark without a license. In other words, you can't make your own Coca-Cola, put it in a can that says Coca-Cola, and sell that to people. That's counterfeiting, and it's extremely not legal. What you can do, however, is make something that tastes almost exactly the same as Coke, and then sell it as Coca-Nola. We know this because because Coca-Cola is a thing that happened. In 1904, Atlanta drugstore owner Thomas Austin got tired of seeing so many of the profits of the Coca-Cola he sold go to the Coca-Cola Company, so he whipped up a knockoff and named it Coca-Nola. Austin spent heavily on advertising, and his cheap knockoff actually became one of the best-selling sodas in the marketplace for several years, and it was totally legal. In a nutshell, the reason Coca-Nola and every other knockoff food product that has followed since aren't illegal is because you can't protect a recipe under copyright or trademark law. When it comes to protecting intellectual property rights in a recipe, you can get a patent, but that patent will only last for 20 years. After that, it basically becomes public domain. Since the Coca-Cola Company has gone a little longer than 20 years, they never patented their recipe. Thus, Coca-Nola. But wait, Coca-Cola is notorious for keeping its formula secret, a trade secret to be precise. And a trade secret behaves like a patent in some ways, but its protections only apply if the holder can prove their trade secret was stolen, a surprisingly difficult thing to do. It's the same legal mechanism used by KFC to protect the Colonel's blend of 11 herbs and spices, by Google to protect its search algorithm, and by Hostess to protect the Twinkies' immortality. So, as long as it's never been patented, or if its patent has expired after the 20-year maximum, pretty much anyone is free to use any recipe they'd like. However, there's more to it than that. Shasta Cola may be aping Coca-Cola's colors, but most consumers will agree that it has a pretty distinct trademark from the real thing. Incidentally, that slogan is trademarked. And that's where this whole cola cloning business gets tricky. You see, there are product elements beyond the recipe that are protectable by trademark, such as a product's name, logo, packaging, and design. Coke can't stop you from selling cola, but they can absolutely trademark the shape and design of their glass bottles. And believe us, they have. Of course, manufacturers of knockoff products generally design them to imitate the packaging as well, so consumers will be able to immediately tell what the hell Mountain Rush is. But at some point, if a knockoff knocks off too many of these trademarkable elements, it becomes a counterfeit product, designed to trick consumers rather than give them a more affordable option. And that's when the lawyers get involved. Real lawyers, not knockoffs. So far, the court of public opinion generally agrees that Shasta has successfully managed to stay on the right side of the knockoff versus counterfeit line. They're still making all of the knockoffs we mentioned, as well as roughly 35 other varieties, including but not limited to apple, black cherry, cream soda, grape, orange pineapple, root beer, strawberry, and a suspiciously Sprite-like lemon lime soda called Twist. Of course, not every Shasta flavor has gone the distance. Discontinued flavors include chocolate, red apple, guava passion fruit, pineapple orange, and the notorious bubblegum, which was blue for some reason. Maybe they should have mixed it with chocolate. These days, Shasta is owned by National Beverage, the same company that owns brands like LaCroix and Faygo. And as of 2024, National is the 11th biggest soda company in the world, with a market capitalization of about $4.5 billion. That's not much compared to the $264 billion of market capitalization claimed by the Coca-Cola Company, but it's nothing to sneeze at. So raise your cans of Mountain Rush high in a toast. It's just what Dr. Shasta ordered.
Come, children, gather around and hear tales about days long ago in the 1980s, before we knew the pressure of too many choices. Movie theaters had 3 screens, TV had 3 channels, and there were only 2 major league soda games in town, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. But just like the Highlander, there could only be one, resulting in a billion-dollar clash of celebrity endorsements, blind taste tests, and the nightmare of new Coke. Today on Weird History Food, we're talking about the 80s carbonated cola wars. Okay, Coke or Pepsi? Choose wisely, my friends. The trouble between Coke and Pepsi had been bubbling since their inception. In 1886, a Georgia pharmacist called Dr. John S. Pemberton came up with the idea for blending carbonated water and sweet syrup into a refreshing fountain beverage. A few minor things to note. Pemberton was a morphine addict due to an injury from the Civil War, and Coke was not his first foray into beverages. He'd begun with something called French wine cola, which claimed to be a wonderful invigorator of sexual organs. Wow, can't believe that one didn't take off. During a statewide prohibition of alcohol, Pemberton created a non-alcoholic temperance drink, dubbing it Coca-Cola. And while the recipe for Coca-Cola is locked up tighter than your old MySpace account, we can tell you Pemberton's secret ingredients were real Coke, the white powdered kind, and caffeine. Much of soda's earliest innovations were created by pharmacologists adding random substances from their shelves. The Atlanta Journal sounded a coked-up horn when they wrote the soda was delicious, refreshing, exhilarating, invigorating. You tend to speak in exclamation points after downing a can of those secret ingredients. As Coca-Cola's popularity grew, other pharmacists took note. In 1893, a North Carolinian named Dr. Caleb Bradham developed Brad's drink by combining carbonated water with sugar, caramel, and other natural flavors.
That's what I like to hear.
5 years later, Brad's drink was rebranded as Pepsi Cola, either because Brad was and is a pretty lame name, or because they didn't want to get in trouble for stealing his drink. By 1902, the Pepsi Cola company was up and running, but Coca-Cola was still the dominant cola for the first part of the 20th century. Pepsi had a rough go at it at first, going bankrupt in 1923, though in fairness, pretty much everyone went broke around then. Pepsi restructured in the 1930s, arriving back on the playing field only to see Coke continue to surge ahead in sales. It wasn't that Coke was necessarily better, though it obviously is, especially McDonald's Coke. How? Why? So good. They also knew how to corner the market on a burgeoning Americana, advertising in schools to get kids hooked from an early age and turning Santa Claus into a mascot. Seriously, how do you compete with Santa Claus? A mascot named Brad? No, Brad, that'll never work. By the time World War II broke out, Coca-Cola could be found in 44 countries. In 1965, Pepsi merged with Frito-Lay so it could gain better footholds in the restaurant and supermarket industries. Or maybe they were trying to corner the market as a one-stop shop for munchies. After all, these drinks were being created by the early 20th century equivalent of a guy you have saved in your phone as Molly Mark. But Coca-Cola was busy launching a dizzying array of carbonated beverages like Sprite, Tab, and Fresca, a sugar-free grapefruit soda.
How about a Fresca?
Pepsi just couldn't compete. Sick of playing second fizzle, and with very little to lose, Pepsi made its first real crisp move against its colossal cola competitor in the mid-70s with a now famous challenge. The year, 1975. The place, shopping malls and public areas across America. It was known as the Pepsi Challenge, a genius bit of marketing dreamed up by the soda company's ad team. The premise was simple. Have Americans do a blind taste test between samples of Coke and Pepsi, and have them decide which was the superior beverage. Thanks to a higher sugar content, Pepsi was sweeter than Coke, allegedly resulting in over 50% of tasters preferring its taste over the gold standard.
Pepsi.
Pepsi ads proclaimed victory, praising consumers for knowing a winner when you taste one, even though it was later determined that the actual preference for one brand over the other was negligible, which still counts as a win when you're up against the Goliath-esque Coca-Cola. With Pepsi unexpectedly delivering a solid blow, Coke had to up its game and fast. The brand came back with the biggest celebrity endorsement it could find. Someone who Americans liked, someone who they trusted, someone with authority who also appealed to this country's wholesome nature. Coca-Cola went out and got themselves a lovable comedian, Bill Cosby. Yeesh, some things age like a fine wine, others like a Cosby sweater. In the mid-'80s marketing campaign, Cosby would go to malls and spy on Pepsi Challenge participants with a pair of binoculars, pointing out flaws in the blind taste test's methodology. Wonder what else he was doing. In retrospect, this was creepy, but it was also effective. Though Pepsi had gained some traction by managing to instill doubt into the minds of thirsty Americans, brand preference was still strong enough to keep Coca-Cola in the lead for now. With the Pepsi Challenge's continued media blitz, Coca-Cola had to find new and creative ways to assert its dominance. That led to Diet Coke in 1982, the first Coca-Cola product to embrace the Coke nickname, not counting its original secret ingredient, of course. Though they'd had limited success in the 60s when Coke first released a low-calorie beverage called Tab, their advertising had mainly marketed it towards women. Tab, you've got to order something first.
Just give me something without any sugar in it, okay?
Diet Coke, meanwhile, was for the ladies and the fellas.
It's a fuller taste, much different than Tab. What's stronger?
To be clear, Diet Pepsi had existed since 1964, and Royal Crown's Diet Right predated that, making its debut in 1962. But Diet Coke was the first hit in the US diet soda market. In fact, by 1984, it was the nation's third most popular soft drink, right behind Coke and a little uncola known as 7-Up. 7-Up was an anomaly, an outlier in the soda wars that wasn't produced by Pepsi or Coca-Cola, but by Dr. Pepper, whose founder was, you guessed it, a pharmacist. How is Pepsi going to top the 1-2 punch of Diet Coke and the Cosby endorsement? By getting their own celebrity spokesperson, obviously, and one who had a different market appeal than Cosby's patrician wholesomeness. Pepsi wanted someone cooler, edgier. As MTV came into its own, Pepsi looked for a musician who could literally reach out and touch a younger audience. You see where this is going, right? Michael Jackson, the undisputed king of pop, had already been approached by the Coke team and had passed on $1 million endorsement deal. Marketing ideas really age well, folks. In a huge upset for the soda wars, Jackson teamed up with the underdog Pepsi and became the shining jewel in Pepsi's Choice of a New Generation campaign. It was later revealed that Pepsi had offered Jackson $5 million for shilling the soft drink, the biggest personal endorsement deal in history at the time.
$5 million!
Had all gone as planned, Jackson would have starred in a series of national commercials, as well as made it the official beverage of his Victory World Tour. But all did not go as planned. While filming the second of his Pepsi commercials in 1984, a pyrotechnic went off, lighting Jackson's hair up and severely burning his head and face, leaving Moonwalker scarred for the rest of his life. This could have been a sticky situation, but Jackson's camp played nice, probably because of all that money on the table. Not only did Jackson not hold the company at fault, but he would continue on as their spokesperson 2 years later. Explosions and celebrity scarring aside, Pepsi's sales had skyrocketed in the mid-80s, culminating in the 1984 release of Jackson's Soda Spot, featuring the King of Pop singing rewritten Pepsi-centric lyrics to his hit song, Billie Jean. Hey, it was a different time. The ad and tour did the trick, attracting a bevy of hip stars like Michael J. Fox, David Bowie, and Madonna to the new generation. Coke's share of the market was in freefall, dropping from 60% during World War II to a mere 20% in the mid-80s. You can actually chart the progress of the Cola Wars by watching Back to the Future movies. In the original Back to the Future, there's whole scenes devoted to Marty McFly ordering various Coca-Cola products. By the release of Back to the Future Part 2, shifting consumer preferences and Michael J. Fox's new status as a Pepsi spokesperson resulted in the sequel featuring a whole scene about Pepsi. Advertising campaigns were getting more barbed as well. No longer content to just hype their own product, Pepsi went on the attack.
Hi, boys!
One commercial featured an archaeologist leading a Pepsi-sipping group of students through the remains of a split-level home and discovering a grime-covered Coca-Cola, effectively calling Coke a relic of the past. As the Cola Wars dragged on, public sentiment was best summed up by journalist and Pepsi head Brian Junger, who said, "I'm surprised we didn't just divide the country and put our own sort of pop wall up. Coca-Cola was on the ropes." You know how an animal is always the most dangerous when it's cornered? That adage apparently applies to soda manufacturers as well. Swinging for the fences, Coca-Cola's new CEO, Roberto Goizuega, started a super-secret task force within the company, calling it Project Kansas.
Project Kill Machine!
That's not what it stands for.
So what does it stand for?
The codename was an homage to progressive Kansas politician and editor William Allen White, who had once called Coke the sublimated essence of all that America stands for. With the Cosby ads, Coca-Cola had claimed its superiority was due to its more sophisticated flavor, which was less sweet than Pepsi. New focus groups and surveys were being conducted around America, with the goal of retiring Coca-Cola's signature flavor in favor of a sugary upgrade. Sweetened with corn syrup, New Coke was supposed to be a smoother, sweeter flavor closer to Diet Coke. Coca-Cola executives evidently didn't realize people don't drink diet soda because they prefer the taste. While focus groups didn't exactly hate the taste, it wasn't a huge success either. But Coca-Cola made the decision to completely phase out their original product to make way for the new formula. In other words, New Coke would be the only kind of Coke you could buy. Good thing that couldn't possibly go wrong. New Coke debuted in April 1985 to a generally dismal reception. The publisher of Beverages Digest calling the switch the boldest consumer products move of any kind of any stripe since Eve started to hand out apples. That's actually a pretty good slogan, but not for Coca-Cola, which was supposed to be the steady, unflinching hand of the nation's favorite fizzle water. For some reason, the South took this the hardest. Many there were Coca-Cola loyalists and considered Pepsi a Yankee brand. Newsweek likened New Coke to two-day-old Pepsi. A group called the Old Cola Drinkers of America, which really existed and we swear we did not make up, even sued Coca-Cola to revert back to the original branding and formula. And, for the very first time in history, Coca-Cola sales sank beneath Pepsi. A horror. Though the company would rapidly reverse course 3 months later and put the original flavor back on the shelves under the name Classic Coke, the damage had already been done. Pepsi was now officially winning the Cola Wars. When New Coke debuted, Pepsi took out ads featuring a betrayed consumer whimpering, "Why did Coke change?" The answer the ad was hinting at was obvious. Pepsi had gotten under Coke's delicious caramely skin with the Pepsi Challenge taste tests. By tinkering with their tried-and-true formula, Coke was essentially admitting there was something wrong with it. It was an identity crisis. Following Coca-Cola's announcement of their commitment to New Coke, Pepsi took out a full-page ad in the New York Times declaring victory. Employees were allowed to go home early, with Pepsi's CEO Roger Enrico claiming, "By today's action, Coke has admitted that it's not the real thing." In other words, Pepsi was absolutely reveling in being a messy bitch. 3 months later, Coca-Cola reversed course with a half measure, reintroducing the original flavor under the brand Classic Coke. This just made the problem worse. Much like having two actresses nominated in the same category for the same movie, New Coke and Classic Coke both on the shelves confused customers and split the vote, reducing sales for both flavors. Desperate, Coca-Cola ditched Cosby, which was honestly best for everyone then and the future, and hired fictional pop culture character Max Headroom as the face of New Coke. However, the selection of Max Headroom was seen by some as a forced attempt to court the same youthful demographic as Pepsi's New Generation campaign. Sort of a precursor to the "How do you do, fellow kids?" meme featuring Steve Buscemi. Come to think of it, Steve Buscemi would make an excellent soda spokesman. But this was far from the end of Coca-Cola, as you may have noticed by the brand's continued presence in just about every corner store and restaurant in America. After an initial surge in sales following New Coke's release, Pepsi failed to gain many converts. People didn't hate New Coke. In fact, some weirdos actually liked it.
It's the best Coke I've ever had. It's just delicious.
The animosity was more directed at the total removal of the original formula. Sort of like how George Lucas deleted the original versions of the Star Wars trilogy after those god-awful special editions came out. And at the end of the year, it was Coca-Cola who claimed the most in sales, with Classic Coke outselling both New Coke and Pepsi. Just goes to show, you can't teach an old soda new tricks. Well, you can, just don't expect to sell it in the South. So what do you think? Which cola rules them all? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Weird History Food.